Now we are going to discuss about the second generation computers. The period of second generation computers was from 1959 to 1963. The basic technology used in this very generation was transistors. Okay, so here we can see the picture of transistor. Okay, over here this is a transistor, and it was used in the second generation computers. Now we are discussing about the characteristics of second generation computers. The very first characteristics is it was based on transistors used for circuitry instead of vacuum tubes. As we have already learned in the first generation of computers that they used vacuum tubes, but unlike the first generation, second generation used transistors for circuitry. So let me tell a little bit about transistors also. Transistors were invented in the year 1947 by three scientists named J. Barden, H. W. Britton, and W. Shockley. A transistor is a semiconductor device used to amplify or switch electronic signals and electrical power. So it was the technology used in the second generation of computers. Now they used punch cards for input and output, as you have already learned in this first generation of computers. But the difference is, unlike first generation of computers which used magnetic drums for storage, now the second generation computer is using magnetic tapes for storage. Okay, here over here in the picture you can see that this is a magnetic disc. Okay, it is a magnetic drive. Okay, the circular portion, the round portion is known as magnetic disc, and the strips which is covered, okay, which the long magnetic strip that is covering the round disc is known as magnetic tape. Okay, magnetic tape is what? It is a long narrow strip of plastic that thin magnetic material is coated on. Okay, so magnetic tape data storage is a system for storing digital information on magnetic tape using digital रिकॉर्डिंग. सो डिजिटल रिकॉर्डिंग की सहायता से हम क्या करते थे, इन पतली प्लास्टिक स्ट्रिप्स पे, ठीक है, जो मैग्नेटिक कोटेड रहती थी मैग्नेटिक मटेरियल से, उन पे डेटा को हम राइट करते थे, उनको स्टोर करते थे, जो कि एक मैग्नेटिक डिस्क के अराउंड ये होती थी, कवर्ड होती थी. ओके, so in second generation, magnetic cores were used as primary memory, and magnetic tape and magnetic disks were used as secondary storage devices. Okay, now as we have already seen in first generation computers, they calculated data in milliseconds. Okay, but now in second generation computers the calculation was a bit faster than that, and it calculated data in microseconds. Okay, now the second generation computers were smaller in size than the first generation computers. As you can see over here, this is the second generation computer, and as you can see that the very first generation computers were as big as a room. Okay, but these are smaller than that, and very smaller than that generation of computers. And so it is actually portable also. पोर्टेबल इन द सेंस कि इसे हम एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ले जा सकते थे, बिकॉज फर्स्ट जनरेशन कंप्यूटर्स वाज नॉट एट ऑल पोर्टेबल, बिकॉज उसको इतना बड़ा होता था वो कि हम उसे एक जगह से दूसरी जगह कैरी नहीं कर पाते थे. बट यहाँ क्या है, सेकेंड जनरेशन का कंप्यूटर जो है उससे थोड़ा छोटा है, और इतना बड़ा अभी भी है, बट वो इतना छोटा है कि हम उसे एक जगह से दूसरी जगह अब ले जा सकते हैं. ठीक है, so now the next characteristic is the second generation computers were faster, cheaper and more efficient than the first generation of computer. Okay, फर्स्ट जनरेशन का जो कंप्यूटर वो भी फास्टर था, ठीक है, बट ये उससे ज़्यादा फास्ट है, उससे ज़्यादा चीपर है, यानी कि उससे ज़्यादा खर्चीला नहीं है, उससे कम खर्चीला है, एंड और भी ज़्यादा इफ़िशियंट है, उससे ज़्यादा अच्छा काम करके दे सकता है, ठीक है. देन इट इज़ लेस, एक्चुअली सेकेंड जनरेशन कंप्यूटर्स जो थे, actually they consumed very less amount of energy as compared to the first generation of computers. As we have already learned that first generation of computers consume very large amount of energy, but in second generation computers they consume very less amount of energy as compared to first generation of computers, and so does not produce much heat as previous, and that is why it is also very efficient. Now the disadvantages of second generation computers were, since it was also very big and it used transistors, so cooling system was also required in second generation of computers. It actually produces heat, so a cooling system was required, and that is therefore heat maintenance was also, constant maintenance was required. But the basic demerit, the actual demerit of second generation computers was they can't be used for general purpose, they were used only for specific purposes. Okay, some of the examples were IBM 1401, Honeywell 200, 400, CDC 1604, and so many. Now we're going to discuss about the very third generation of computers. So the period of third generation computers was from 1964 to 1970, and the basic technology used was integrated circuits, or also known as IC chips. So here we're going to discuss the characteristics of third generation computers. Actually, the third generation computers was based on integrated circuits instead of transistors, but here it is. IC was a single component containing number of transistors. IC chips जो थे, आपने ट्रांजिस्टर्स पिछले सेकेंड जनरेशन कंप्यूटर्स में देखा कि ट्रांजिस्टर्स किस तरीके के होते थे. इन आईसी चिप्स में क्या है, बहुत सारे हंड्रेड्स एंड मिलियंस ऑफ ट्रांजिस्टर्स जो है उस एक कंपोनेंट उस आईसी चिप के अंदर में हुआ करते थे, इंटीग्रेटेड होते थे, जुड़े होते थे. Okay, so that is why it is known as integrated circuits, because it is an integration of hundreds and millions of transistors. Now, IC actually was invented by Robert Noyce and Jack Kilby in 1958 and 259. Okay. Now, the basic advantages of third generation computer is they used keyboard and mouse for input and monitor for output. Okay, you have already seen keyboard in labs or maybe in your houses too. Okay, so keyboard was first used in third generation. So in third generation of computers, as you can see in the picture over here, they used keyboards and the monitor. This is the monitor, it is used for output. Here we can see the whatever the data we input, we can see the output on the monitor also. Okay, so for input purpose we used keyboards, and for output purpose we used monitors. Okay, that's clear. Now they calculated data in nanoseconds. Okay, we have already seen in first generation that they calculated data in milliseconds. The second generation computers calculated data in microseconds, and now in third generation of computers the calculation was much more quicker and faster than the previous generations. So now they calculated data in nanoseconds. Okay, now they were smaller in size than the early computers. You have already seen the pictures of the computers that were in first generation and second generation. Obviously you can see the difference that this very computer is far very smaller in size than the early computers. So the third generation computers were much smaller in size. Now the next characteristic is they were faster, cheaper and more efficient than the first generation computers. Obviously, the third generation of computer was actually faster, cheaper and more efficient than not only the first generation but the second generation of computer. It was faster, it was reliable also than the previous generation of computers. It has a big storage capacity also. The third generation of computers has big storage capacity also. Actually, IC or you can say integrated circuit is a small wafer which is usually made up of a silicon that can hold anywhere from hundreds to millions of transistors, and it can function as an amplifier, timer or even computer memory also. Okay, so IC chips can also be used as computer memory. Now the next characteristic is they consumed very less amount of energy as compared to the first generation computers that has bigger storage and has bigger storage capacity, as I've already told you that the third generation of computers consumed very less amount of energy as compared to the previous generations. It is some of the advantages also that it reduced computation time from microsecond to nanosecond, and it used OS for better resource management. OS is also called operating system. Okay, operating system concept is also been introduced in third generation of computers, and the concept was also used of time sharing and multiple programming. The disadvantages of third generation computers was actually IC chips are very difficult to maintain. Okay, they were highly sophisticated technology that required for the manufacturing of IC chips. IC chips को बनाने में बहुत ही highly sophisticated technology की use होती थी, because उसमें बहुत सारे transistors को हम integrate करते थे. So the manufacturization of IC chips was very difficult at that time. Okay, so that was difficult to maintain, and air conditioning was also required because of the heat production. Okay, some of the examples of third generation computers are IBM 360, Apple I, ICL 1900, PDP-8, etc. Now we're gonna discuss about the fourth generation of computers.